All right, friend. Welcome to a little afternoon movement session. My name is Liam Buller, and I say afternoon movement session. It's afternoon where I am, and often this is the time of day that I like to practice the kind of movement that we'll do. So it's probably be like a 20-25 minute session, and definitely an emphasis on restorative movement. And if you're not familiar with that kind of movement, or even if you are, maybe just a reminder that this kind of work can be really profound. The restoration of letting go and letting different lineages name it different things, but letting life force do its dance through you. So I don't think it's wise or helpful to be overly simplistic and say like, oh, just let it go, right? It's like, it's a process. Or it's a dance. There's no there, but it's just like a releasing a fist has a certain feel to it. We have 30 plus trillion cells, letting that dance happen at a cellular level. So wherever you are now, as you maybe make sure you have the right stuff, which is just something comfortable to lie down on. It could be a yoga mat or a rug or just anywhere that you feel safe and a little space and time to do a practice like this. I do think some flexible clothing is helpful. I have some tights on that I like to wear in the winter, either alone or I throw my jeans on after this and go out into my day. So yeah, when you're all set, let's just take a moment for wherever you're comfortable. So I'll stay upright primarily because I want to facilitate an experience for you. But if this were me practicing, it would depend on the day. I definitely might lie down. Like lying down with either your knees bent or your feet flat out can be super comfortable. And wherever you are, let's do dessert first. Let's take the first few moments of this to really enjoy the process of lying down, of taking a little time of rest, whatever is going on in your life right now, whether it's an average day for you or it's hitting the fan like nothing else, or the other end of the spectrum where you're just so in love with the world. Wherever you are, letting all of those cells have a bit of time to settle. Just like a flower blooms over time and seasons change over time. Just as best you can, as you breathe, sort of this short little window, the next few breaths, what it's like to really try on the statement of I'm going to really allow whatever time it takes for who knows what. We don't even necessarily know what. We could say for your body to do its dance, her dance, his dance, your dance. And on that note, though this is recorded in cyberspace, I do think there's a lot to the sort of heart energy that can be put out and that you're putting out watching this. So you might take a moment, just feel welcome. If you're watching this, I'm so glad you're here. You're in company with anyone else who's taken this class, and with just so many of us interested in the body, the sort of body work as a means of dancing through the world intelligently and kindly, maybe among other adjectives. So welcome. I don't know about you, but I've spent a lot of my life feeling like a stranger who didn't belong. So you might, if that resonates with you at all, don't even need to fully believe it's true, but just letting into your heart space, the space in between your lungs, a sense of belonging, or maybe even better and more direct, just hearing somebody say that, welcome. Welcome to this space. I'm glad you're here. Before you do anything, before you earn it or don't earn it, kind of welcome that's unearned. So let's take that sentiment, that sort of feeling, whatever that's like for you, into some movement. We'll work with a couple just real simple supportive and pressing movements. And in a lot of ways, actually, I think that really does well express the sort of welcoming nature of the ground, right? You let anything go and it is welcomed into gravity, whether we like it or not. So if you're not already on your back, maybe you make your way to your back. And in the next few breaths, bend both of your knees and rest your feet on the ground. Take a sense internally of the weight, your cellular weight. A lot of times, of course, weight can have a negative connotation, whether we're talking about body image or spiritually, like, oh, things get heavy. So, it may have that connotation for you, but as you can, without the sort of, without seeking it or avoiding it, feel what weight is present in the cells of your fingernails, of the soles of your feet, of your buttocks, in the bones of your pelvis. What's the weight like in the cells around your pelvic floor, your genitals, anus, the pubic bone and the coccyx? And just like a ship, weight doesn't mean it's just going down no matter what, right? Weight can have buoyancy, it can be moved, so there's a sort of presence to this. What's that presence like in your legs, in your back of your heart? The backs of your arms. My hands are resting on my belly. Your hands can be wherever you'd like. Just don't worry about your hands, but do let their weight just naturally kind of fall, be felt. In this space, bring attention to, again, the bottoms of the feet and what sort of weight is already there, sort of weight and presence in the backs of each leg. And just like we were pouring water, you're going to pour a little bit more weight into the bottom of the foot. At least to start, nothing's going to lift off the ground. I'm just slowly pressing, like if there were an ink pad underneath my right foot, and then slowly kind of juice out a little bit of ink. And then release. Come back to center and just see if there's any gripping, residual gripping hanging on through the right foot. And if that's noticed, let it go. And then let's do the same thing with the left foot. Rather than launching right into the doing, again, notice what's already there. Notice what's already there in the weight in the left foot. As you start to, like you were pressing down on an ink pad, bring a little bit more weight presence into the bottom of the left foot. It might feel really different than the right. Probably feels at least a little different. And then again, empty that out, let that go. We'll do that back and forth a couple of times. Some days when I'm doing a practice like this, I like to feel really slow, like I might spend I don't even know how long, honestly, but like 3-4 minutes per foot or longer. Some days it feels better to have a little faster. Follow your unique heart right now, your unique body interest, just like you're following smells down the street, just what smelled good and interesting as you pour your weight right foot to left foot. Now, as we're doing this, you may already naturally be doing this, but let's just bring attention to one good metric, especially this restorative work, is I want to do this in a way that's as easy as possible. It doesn't mean you're slack-jawed and you're drooling on yourself as you slowly press left to right. But it's the opposite of making a fist, right? You can imagine if you're pushing through your left foot and you tightened your jaw and you made a fist. It's just seeing that the sort of hum of vitality through your cells, or the chi, or you could think of the lymphatic interstitial fluids, depending on whose language you want to talk. That just that's unimpeded. Next time you press through your left foot, or maybe you're still on the right foot, in which case pause this and then go to your left. And then the next time you go through your left foot, come back towards center and take a moment either with your knees bent or release forward. Either one is fine. And just have a couple breaths of non-efforting. Now start to pour the ink pad underneath both feet. Again, I'm not lifting my pelvis yet, but start to, what's it like to press down both feet at the same time? My experience here is the slower I go, in some ways the more interesting things are. Or it's different. I shouldn't say more interesting. There's a certain layer of interest that happens at a very early stage. Almost when you think about pushing down through both hands, notice sometimes there's a torsion. There's often a rotation that expresses in the pelvis. Maybe a tightening on one side of your face or in your chest. So what I'm doing is having that idea and then letting it go, kind of always starting from ground zero. Or I shouldn't say always, but right now starting from ground zero a few times. Pressing down through both feet. Does one like to go first? Is the pattern different? And I'm really not, this isn't just a nice thing to say, I'm not going for symmetry at all costs, or even at any cost. But if there is an asymmetry, if I notice, my right foot, then my left, it means something is being navigated around. And what I'm proposing is that we bring some attention to what we're navigating around. How do you do that? How do you know there's a boulder in the river? Even if you couldn't see it, you would see the river navigating around it, right? So as you press through both feet, notice the river of your movement or of your energy. They're one and the same in this case. And under the way of, among other things, kind of getting to know the landscape, the internal topography. Right? This isn't, I have a left rotation and I already knew that. Let that pressing be a sort of medicine through each foot. Mm-hmm. Now, just for fun, if you'd like, you can start pressing through both feet. Left and right feet are both kind of squeezing at the ink pad. Could you bring now the ink pad into your sacrum also? So the sacrum is the triangular bone at the bottom of your spine, like a downward facing arrow. Now notice here, perhaps as your breath gotten tighter a little bit, the roof of your mouth. What's the easiest way you can do this? And we're just hanging out, holding like a little asana, like a position. You can, pardon, I'm gonna sneeze. Dang, hope that wasn't loud. All right, you can release that, like I just did. Sneeze or not. Okay. And sort of what we're going to work with in today's practice, which you can do as long as you want, is about rolling side to side. So first, let's take a moment and maybe you feel some emotional resonance with what we were talking about in the beginning of that being welcomed, not needing to earn your place. So that emotionally, I think, can be a really sweet segue into what we're about to do, and that is we're going to essentially roll side to side with as little lifting as possible. Again, this isn't pushing around a rag doll, but it is about pressing just enough through the ground to move. So you can, for this first side, straighten your right leg, or you could keep your right leg bent. I'll demo with it bent. And just envision, okay, I'm going to roll to the right. Let's, for fun, kind of constrict this and say that roll is going to start at my left foot. Let's like to press and start to lift up through the, I'd say the lifting is a byproduct. I'm pressing through my left foot. I'm not really thinking about lifting my left pelvis, so that might happen. Pressing, 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 moving towards rolling left. You can go a little ways and then come back. Like you're sort of softening the bony prominences that you're rolling over. Kind of doing a little pressing like I'm moving to my left. And noticing what's gripping. Gripping is another word for pulling away. It's kind of a freezing and pulling away. So if there's a gripping, it might be essential, but it might not. So there's this little investigation as you press through your left foot. Perhaps your left pelvis starts to rise as a result of this pressing. There's, of course, pressing happening somewhere else too. And eventually, you can stay with this. This can be a game of millimeters. You can be doing this entirely in your head. But as I then reach some apex and I'm still pressing, there will come some point where I can sort of push my way over. Then I'm on my side. Oh, hi. Sometimes I'll rest here for like minutes. And then to come back, instead of swinging this top leg, boom, like that, consider going back in a similar way, a similar relationship to the ground. So if your left hand, right arm, everything, or right outside thigh, you can sort of push. Of course, there'll be some raising here, but it's primarily this staying connected to my sort of downward and pressing. Let's do that. And again, maybe you haven't even been all the way over. That's all good. Let's do that one more time, maybe on the right side, or just stay with this for a couple more minutes, maybe another minute. Just thinking, okay, there's a space over here. I'm gonna orient to it by really relating to the earth. I'm gonna move towards it by relating to the earth, by ungripped pressing, press, roll. Right? That's what we're playing with. Keeping in mind, I just started to do this actually. Sometimes I'll get halfway and be like, okay, I'm doing, this concept will come in. I'm doing a roll now. And I'm like, okay, and I just finish it up. So instead of that, or, whatever, that'll happen. But then I can just return to this relationship of the easy, ungripped, what's my pelvic floor doing? My bottoms of my feet, ungripped pressing. Again, this can be a big movement. It can be a movement of, even micrometers. When you come back to the top, the next minute or two, or let's say a few seconds, you can again just rest with your knees bent or legs forward. I'm releasing mine here, so that's what I feel like doing. And take a few breaths of really observing. You might notice that your right and left nostrils feel a little different, or that's what I'm noticing, and I often do. And of course, what we're just doing wasn't just one side or the other, right? Any movement is a full body activity. So just feeling the effects of the full body. Okay, when you're ready, if your knees aren't already bent, you can bend them. Again, you could do this whole thing too on the other side. I'll demo now here. With your left leg straight and your right leg bent. Dare to be asymmetrical. Let's just go with that, right? I don't need to be like, well, I did 2 reps, on this side, da 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 da. That kind of thinking can be fine, but this is what we're doing here. Again, it's about the systemic engagement. It's not necessarily even about the body parts I'm naming. So all that to say, feel free to, if you had your legs bent last time, you can straighten them out this time, or vice versa. Dare to be wrong also. That's been a big one in my life. So, okay, here we go. I'm going to pour through weight, this time through the right foot, just like we've been doing. And that will translate up, right? Translates up into my body. Ultimately, there's a spiral motion from here to the top of the head. I've been less and less into sort of naming that as a teacher, because in some ways the spiral is an effect. It can be something I produce, but it can also be just the way that force moves if I am relatively unimpeded and I start to press through my foot, right? Through my right foot, and there can be this, what happens is a spiral. That's my experience up through the body. So pressing, as a result, the right pelvis is lifting. Just relating, of course, I have my right arm relating to what it's like to not push away like an adversary, not flop onto like a bad date, but like a lover that you really, really care about and really respect deeply, and who's really 100% here for you. That might be the feel of the earth as okay, that's this relationship. And from here we can move, we can create something out of nothing by pressing. And so this side for me, I am doing a little practice right now as well with you. I'm feeling less inclined on this side, like, at least so far, need to go over all the way to the left, but it's the same idea. But for this kind of practice, again, I'm really, as I press into my right foot and orient left, so I'm noticing kind of a stiffness at the base of my neck and my neck spine, like the back of my neck. It's subtle, but also distinct. That's where just my attention went. So I come back to ground zero, have a little moment to reorient, and almost just a sweetness of like, oh, something got afraid for a moment. Something went clink. Bringing a sort of sweetness there, not just that body part, but through my whole field of breathing, being. And I'm doing right now very little movement. I'm thinking like, oh, I should show, but you get the idea, right? I can roll onto my left side, but these very subtle pressing for now, for me, feels much more appropriate. Pressing through the right foot, orienting left. That's the sort of parameters of the poem we are writing. So again, feel free to pause at any point, but you might have another few breaths on this side. I'm not looking at a clock. Speaking of asymmetry. Again, sort of daring, and it is a daring to be simple, to be, asymmetrical, to not make the right choice. All of that under the big umbrella of what is right now. You read that on a yogi tea bag, but that body sense, okay, I'm doing this movement. Your full attention sort of basking in your own, in the awareness. When you feel ready for that, you can release all the way forward with both your legs, both your arms. You could have your knees bent. A nice way to close this session could be to either lay down for a few minutes if you know a restorative yoga pose, or you could put your legs up the wall. Just continue doing the same sort of releasing work in a very passive way. Or you could also, if you've got to do something in the next few minutes, you might come to a standing meditation, which is these same principles applied in standing. I mean, there's not much to show, but, or you could do the same thing sitting, cross-legged or otherwise, but being upright or lying down and letting this hum of gravity of your life move down, up, out, right? Noticing what you would call it if you had no idea what anybody else had called it before. And before you do close out this practice, you might want to just formally end this in some way. I find that a really helpful practice. You could put your hand on your heart, or you could do a little bow in the direction of the screen or in the direction of something else, but something that feels not just reverential, but like that helps close the transition, the container. So let's do that now. I'll see you next week.